Dwarven soldiers are Beyblades of death that I have used to crush the world neath their muddied steel boots and fend off nightmarish assaults from the living undead. But those took dozens or even hundreds of a civilization's finest. What can one single soldier accomplish? Can they even defend a fort? Can they bring an Elven or goblin empire to their knees? The aspiring Guardian Litast will have the entire fort of Tiristkol supporting them, but they will be the only dwarf ever told to go fight anything, from the smallest creature to the scariest megabeast or most intimidating goblin stronghold. All while they try to see if they're dwarf enough to kill 1,000 foes or take out an entire civilization entirely on their own. Tiristkol has a long way to go before it can offer more than the 7 dwarves' grit to support Litast. The homeland sent Cyril, a talented administrator, across the ocean to found a foothold for the homeland here. The iron found while miners delved down into the ground any dwarf would dream of living in is a good sign for things to come, even if only a single soldier will need the gear it's turned into in time. That same miner begins carving out a simple staging area for everyone else, while Litast immediately gets to training. Frustratingly, it's lone drilling, when sparring with her partner Fikod would provide much better practice than the pair just taking turns demonstrating skills that they're not very good at to each other. The space that's cleared is used to quickly kickstart production, though it and the nearby dorm room are messy affairs only really fit for temporary use. The 5 dwarves not training are more focused on getting to work helping Litast than on how their living conditions look for now. And while giving their future lone guardian more than the training gear they came in is still a while off, Litast has already begun leveling up their skill with a sword in the some season that they've been training. More skill cannot come soon enough though. Digging down reveals a cavern which is immediately walled off. There's nothing threatening knocking at the dwarves there yet, but all it takes is one nasty little spider sneaking in while Litast is near the surface for there to be huge problems. Before the walls to stop intruders can even be finished, the miner reveals the next huge cavern, including a shocking gem spire and beautiful adamantine. The latter is the stuff of Dwarven legends, and what Litast deserves to wield, although being able to safely excavate and shape that is going to take a lot of time. And speaking of legends, I think Litast needs a more unique name. I mean, there's already 3 Fikods, and she deserves better than imitator migrants who claim to be the Litast. I've been reading a little, and I know the perfect name for a powerful and honest soul that evil withers before. Tom. You know, Bombadil. Back down below, work continues walling the first cavern off to allow for room growing crops. The caverns themselves are even enough to draw soldiers that want to join to clear them, but are denied access because they would steal Tom's glory. Dwarven civilians, though, are allowed to migrate, even if they frankly don't really have that many interesting skills on their own. There'll still be helpful hands around the fort to smelt coal and make gold bars that help pretty the place up, plus begin getting ready to arm Tom much better. And though the first threat has arrived, she doesn't need better than she has so far. The cavern's far enough from the dwarves that work is slow, and Crundle's managed to sneak in before it's completely walled off. Tom kicks Fikod out of the squad so that she alone can head down to get some live training. Her sword's bloodied and the area is secured for growing. And while Tom was terrified of the fight, their nerves quickly harden amidst the fire of battle that real dwarves are forged in. That buys Tiristkol a little freedom and affords them the opportunity to begin smelting plentiful ore down, for mining out a temple area just beneath the main hold, for beginning to farm in the cavern's rich soil so that no one starves, or worse, has to be sober, and for rotting corpses to necessitate a few trips to the surface to dump them up there. That 6 cent will tank even a strong dwarf's mood more than even the plentiful coal veins that brighten a dwarf's day could. These will fuel the furnaces and the first metal smithery before long. There, golden goblets are made to make imbibing even more pleasant, as well as to impress traders from the homeland that arrive soon after. They'll carry news back to those that sent Cyril here in the first place, which will in turn attract more hands to help on Tom's great mission. More gear is going to help her too. Tom brought nearly a full set of armor, but it was mostly cheap copper that's fine for taking on small beasts, but not good enough for taking on goblin iron. Proper dwarven steel though, that suits them so much better. And there's thankfully everything needed to make some here in Tiristkol. That good news has Tom in the mood to spar while dreaming of the perfect weight of steel that'll fit oh so wonderfully in her hands before long. The Homeland's traders arrive to see progress and to offer up needed supplies in exchange for some of the golden goblets, though they thankfully aren't privy to the rot spreading through the fortress that everyone rushes to clean up. Creatures occasionally sneak in and force Tom to get some more involved training with them, leading to all these corpses littering the place. To counterbalance the hit to moods from that nasty rot, and to continue making Tiristkol a welcoming place for more migrants, the forges stop working on goblets and begin instead making golden furniture that'll please eyes instead of lips and coffers. Only when doing that do I do a literal double take in-game and notice that among those who could craft the furniture is a friendly dwarven necromancer. This is the first one that I've ever hosted. Perhaps Tom might not even be stopped by an untimely death. The first golden furniture is made as an altar, added to a temple that gives the dwarves their first proper meeting area in which to socialize, though that will soon be joined by a carved out dining hall with flanking space for a nice kitchen. The animals get their own place up above to graze before they're eventually slaughtered. Offices are added for admin work, and though it hopefully won't be needed for a long time, miners are told to carve a winding alternate path to the entrance, plus a second one on the other side that, I'm just going to be honest, never sees any use. The dining hall is smoothed, outfitted, and allowed to be used none too soon, judging by continually declining moods. Dwarves flood the pleasant space, and even the necromancer enjoys a little casual socializing. Some admittedly simply shaped bedrooms are carved out to further help those moods, while copper and silver begin being smelted down to ultimately work on a project that could give Tom the critical edge they need. It's peaceful progress down below, while peaceful snow falls up above in the depths of winter. Tom's training has continued this entire time, and though her talents only grow slowly with the occasional bits of sparring interspersed with that ineffective drilling or demonstrating, it at least seems she's satisfied, which is good because one bad tantrum could quite literally kill everyone else in this fort. The giant spiders lurking in the caverns could also probably kill everyone in the fort though, so that slow and ineffective drilling is the best she's gonna get instead of being able to roam the caverns. Legendary gear could make up for that difference. There aren't any even passingly decent armor or weaponsmiths here in Tiristkol yet, and training one would take a while and a lot of materials, and so instead, the fort is going fishing. Everyone, and I mean everyone, is going to be rotated to make a single piece of armor and a lone weapon that'll make them a dabbling smith of each. When they feel inspired and ultimately decide to make a legendary, they choose one of their talents. So for example, Erdem can now make a weapon, armor, or piece of cut stone to become a legend in. Getting everyone in the fort there will be a constant task, mostly off screen, and I even made an entire spreadsheet with every immigrant's name to keep track of who needs training, since the game doesn't keep track of who's got a dabbling skill in what. Bedrooms begin being filled out and put into use, while Tom's training has them achieve the level of a professional swords dwarf, while spring arrives to mark a full year here, largely spent continuing to give everyone a dabbling interest in metalworking. One of the migrants is finally a decent enough weaponsmith to at least outfit Tom in her first steel sword, which is a huge upgrade over the meager iron she had used so far. The huge swell of migrants also continue wanting nicer things from the fort. A request for the first temple necessitates a little expansion, with cubbies for other religions that's improved by everyone, and furnished by delving back into the depths for more gold to spruce the place up. More bedrooms are carved, the temple is officially designated, and the first legendary is not military gear despite all the fishing. It's unfortunate, but it's alright. Continuing to rotate people here will ensure it eventually happens. And at least the statue they made instead helps make the temple nicer, which, combined with a fancy new kitchen, should keep moods high, while civilians continue busying themselves making more bedrooms, preparing a space for a hospital near the entrance, and finally giving Tom the masterwork steel sword she has always deserved. It gives Tom thoughts of roaming the wilds and fighting glorious battles like she's dreamed. But she is instead called to fight against an invading were-iguana that arrives and slaughters civilians unlucky enough to be near them. Fortunately, Tom is able to handle the creature without any issues, which allows Ficod to rejoin the squad, and an inspired Tom continues training up to deal with even worse threats. Life continues into the second autumn. Bedrooms are continuously added on to meet the demand for more migrants. Traders from the homeland step over the were-iguana's corpse and bring trade goods and scrolls, and fishing for legendary smiths continues unsuccessfully. A well is added deep underground to ensure that there is water for any injured patients, and albeit at a great distance away from anyone who would need it, and life is overall good. There's plenty of good food and strong drink, and Tom's even doing pretty well themselves. They still itch to rove out and yearn for a family not here, but her skills are impressive, and she and Ficod spar more and more as they begin to realize how useful it is. Before she can get those trips she wants though, Tiristkol must prepare for the inevitable counterattacks. That first involves opening up and walling more space off in the caverns, while Tom stands guard. She charges the first Crundle she sees, a far cry from the terror she experienced when she first fought them, but that's not the right call. It leads her away from the entrance, away from the other dwarves, and a boogeyman transforms into a polar bear back near the entrance and manages to maul Zal the Necromancer to death while Tom is pulled away. I guess this is not the playthrough where I get to finally enjoy a Necromancer's abilities to bring the dead back to life after all. And since it's unclear on what other threats may lay in the caverns now that we know that boogeymen are here, it's time to upgrade Tom's armor. A migrant is passable enough at it that they're told to make steel armor, although they don't get the chance to before the anvil is stolen by someone else who makes what could be a legendary piece of gear instead, but is unfortunately art. And at least it fits Tiristkol well and will spruce some other places up, but it still is disappointing. More somber tombs are made to house the dead necromancer and anyone else who dies in the future, though Zal was off-putting enough that most people aren't sad to see them go. Instead, they're focusing on the wonderful steel armor that's finally made for Tom. The gleam of dim light off solid steel will be an inspiring sight. Their eternal lone guardian, there to keep them safe while they finish walling off all of the other Z levels in that cavern so that no enemies can climb or fly in. The pasture up top is moved down so that the animals aren't slaughtered by the attackers Tom's assaults will soon provoke. But she doesn't get to roam out just yet. She stays on guard duty while that work's finished off through autumn and even into the very depths of winter. More non-gear legendaries are made despite all the fort's efforts, but Tom still manages to attain legendary skill with their steel sword and has a decent mood throughout despite a rigorous training schedule. The arrival of another were-iguana just before the year's end forces Tom to spend the New Year's celebrations marching through skimpy snow, but they easily kill it off with their improved gear and impressive skills. That's the second kill against potent enemies under their belt, and so Tom finally looks abroad. Not to the scary goblin groups nearby, but to the hopefully less scary elves to the northeast. She leaves Tiristkol to go pillage a town of some 10 elves, and after a single day, returns with elven blood recently cleaned off their sword. That adds to the nearly 50 kills they've accumulated, mostly of beasts and little things like Crundles, but that short list is going to be a lot more impressive before long. Tom has a civilization to kill, though her repeated trips out to attack towns of a dozen or 5 seem to involve killing more trained beasts than actual elves. Fortunately for her, killing tigers and lions and leopards, oh my, is at least great training. Tom went from level 3 to level 15 in a couple of years spent training alongside Ficod, but from level 15 to 18 in just a few days roaming out. It's heartwarming to see elves be useful for something, though that does make the arrival of an elven caravan from the society Tom's been attacking a little bit awkward, since Tom returns at the exact same time while reeking of fresh tiger blood. Not that that stops her from waving goodbye to the merchant before heading back out time and time again. She faces little trouble abroad, though her absence does cause minor problems at the fortress itself. A Crundle that snuck inside somehow scurries about the temple area, and no one can muster up the courage to go kill it. When she returns, Tom handles that problem, and a different kind. The Elven merchant brought lovely instruments, but they're mad at something and overcharging for no reason. They won't take a lowball offer, and since Tom's already at war with their whole civilization, plundering is just wartime activity. Those instruments will do a wonderful job of filling the tavern with beautiful music in the years to come. The attacks against moderately sized elven forest retreats continue as spring grows, and the rest of the fort busies itself preparing to add on more nice furniture, and continuing, as always, to fish for legendaries. There's bedrooms to dig, fancy offices to build, including by Tom, who takes her first break from waging war to socialize and craft so that her mood can continue to stay high. Their brief bouts out still added up to over 100 new kills, mostly of animals, in the last few months, and that has also made them into a true beast of a soldier. Other industries finally get indulged, like a clothier's shop that can start replacing old clothes, and a butchery that will ensure the animals kept safe in the cavern are turned into bones and fat for crafting and soap making. That success earns Tiristkol a baroness, and also draws the attention of local goblins who send snatchers to steal what they can, that they fortunately arrive when Tom's back home, and she's able to see them off less than kindly after they sneak into the tunnels. Fancy bedrooms are prepared for royalty and for VIPs, while guild halls are smoothed to prepare for the growing arts as summer arrives. A glass furnace is installed at the very top of the fortress near the sand, and the first guild hall is officially crowned at the metalsmith's request, even if none of them have produced a legendary piece of gear for Tom yet. All while the dwarves spend their downtime improving the fortress with more arts, and keeping Tom happy as can be while she's home. Her summer vacation eventually has to come to an end, and since the goblins are officially at war with us, likely because of the homeland's attacks or me accidentally sending a raid that way, they'll make for fine targets too. Tom's scared of the huge fortresses with 1,000 strong, but the little towns of some 10 to 40 goblins make for decent targets and give her the opportunity to kill more than just elves and animals. It works well. Tom ups their notable kills by more than 50% without having to fight through a sea of beasts to do it, and so she immediately heads back to cull more goblins instead of the elves for a while longer. She still hasn't managed to actually destroy any sites, even if she's reduced a couple to not having anyone to kill when she goes back, but her skills and notoriety grow with every passing day. New workshops begin working on everything needed to stock the hospital with soap in case Tom only limps back at some point. More useless legendaries continue staving off my dreams, and more guild halls are added on as Tiristkol becomes a proper town. But a proper town needs a proper economic hub instead of workshops scattered here or there haphazardly, and so one is intricately carved out while Tom continues venturing out to war. Heavy footsteps mark the halls as the place is mined, then smoothed, as a gift and tribute to her valiant efforts in yet more outnumbered fights while the weeks pass. Her tales are even enough for the homeland to consider this isolated little colony on the far stretch of the land a proper barony, and though Tom herself is the one who deserves the promotion, she can't be lauded while away. So the Mayor Cyril, who's worked to enable Tom so well, instead earns that promotion themselves. Tom's still content despite that. She has 50 notable kills under her belt and another almost 300 notches on their sword. Every trip out adds some 10 more before Tom trudges back to let her foes ferment in their terror at the lone swords dwarf. The city itself continues too. That economic hub is gradually fixed until it's able to be properly started with a stoneworking district that'll keep dwarves working and the furniture hall stocked. A clothes-working district nearby will continue replacing worn-out outfits and working fine luxury garments to make anyone happy. The farming level is expanded for crops beyond just those used in the kitchen and in the stills, and even the workshops above begin making what's needed for Tiristkol to grow from even a barony. Guild halls continue being made to celebrate all kinds of crafters, even if Tom and I are both starting to get a little passive-aggressive about people focusing on anything but what she needs. The fact that they refuse to meet their own needs and instead spend their time tirelessly bearing the lion's share of helping others is most of it. Though trying to leave them free for a little bit to address that at least has them around to guard Tiristkol from yet more goblin thieves. That warrants a counterattack as soon as Tom's had a break, and she rampages through what was a big goblin town to steal a hat. Their TF2 players are in shambles, but since lone hats won't keep this fortress prosperous, it's a good thing that the economic district continues being worked into something grand. Gold statues decorate and celebrate the wealth already made in Tiristkol, and their beauty prompts the construction of a new metalworking zone to make even more. Work continues on that through a harsh winter that's much harsher for Tom's enemies, since she's racked up almost 400 kills, most of which came in just this 1 year. One more trip out even ticks her up above 100 notable kills, which is almost as many as my most seasoned vets when I conquered the entire world. Tom would be as fearsome as could be if there was but a single hero here in the fortress who turned into a legendary smith to help them. There's even a special workshop made and promised to belong to the lone legendary smith, but it stays empty, despite non-stop attempts to turn a dabbling interest into a legendary skill for years now. Hell, Tom's already so fearsome that an elven ambush waits and watches her leave before they leap from the shadows. Fortunately for the rest of Tiristkol, Dwarven doors lock. That gives Tom the opportunity to return and kill those she still finds at the door. Though, unfortunately for Tiristkol, a few more elves were lying in wait, and when civilians go to clean up the mess their dead brethren left, spring from ambush once more to kill some before Tom can save them. She helps bring the injured to the hospital and contemplates adding the traitor that makes a toy axe instead of a real one to the list of the doctor's work. Between the sorrow of that loss and her mood just refusing to lift, Tom gets a proper break and sheds her armor for the first time since arriving 3 years ago. She simply enjoys training too much and won't actually go socialize if she can swing her sword around. Merrymaking in the tavern is interspersed with building a forging district and hauling some of what the miners clear out, excavating plentiful ore veins throughout the fortress. Her breaks cut short when goblins attack, forcing her to once more don her armor and promptly take a nap, even as goblins charge her. And I'm gonna be honest, I just assumed she'd be okay, so I focused on setting up a proper place for her to rest before the next attack, instead of actually on the action. And this fight is a brutal one. She's caught in her sleep and struggles to fend them off after she's injured. Goblins break through, killing civilians in bloody fights. More still bleed out soon afterwards while the hospital rushes to treat who they can. Tombs are expanded to make room for those already dead and those who won't be long while they're left to sit on the hospital's floor. Soaps rush ordered for the living, including Tom, though her injuries thankfully are not too serious. Still, the rest of the fortress is forced into quick action, making medical tools that are now in short supply, cleaning up the rot, and heading to a well that seems so far to get water needed for so many. Healing this much isn't done overnight, but things are slowly fixed up, and Tom recovers enough to even continue helping those still struggling with their injuries, until bloody cries for revenge call them away once more. The goblins must pay. The migrants that dwindle towards Tiristkol push it back up over 100 again, and their eagerness helps draw attention down into the ground. Tom needs more. She deserves gear so good that she can't even be beaten in her sleep. And that means returning to the spire found so many years ago. A path is mined, then readjusted when it hits the cavern early. Builders install a bridge in case the spire needs to be suddenly blocked off, and a gem setter is added to the list of dwarves Tom wants revenge against, though she instead takes her anger out on enemies she finds fewer and fewer of with every trip. Most of these local sites have already been turned into lifeless ghost towns, and though the combat report never says she destroys one of them, it's definitely finished off. Tom, the lone soldier, managed to destroy an entire goblin hamlet that once boasted some 5 dozen. It is fantastic news, and a sign of both Tom's progress and the looming threat she is on the world stage. But between that and the spire now in Tiriskol's sights, there's no longer time to wait for a sudden burst of inspiration. The new furnace hub gets their first job to give some aspiring smiths all the practice materials they could dream of. Tom's trips out are cut a little short when the same spire that calls the miners and builders also seems to get children who want to wander into the dangerous, forcing Tom to guard the entrance. If the little ones can get out, big things can follow them back home. Tom does manage to handle everything that tries, while civilians rescue some animals lost to the caverns long ago, mostly because of my own mistakes in setting up the pasture one tile too far. Once that's handled and the entrance is walled off, the spire is now safe and Tom's allowed more time off. When she's not abroad, she doesn't need to train anymore given her impressive skills. She will still stay ready though. The spire could prove dangerous without a moment's notice. That time off, and the myriad of recent pleasant thoughts will hopefully help her with her still falling mood. She begins unwinding while miners and builders prepare scaffolding around the edge of the spire to the place adamantine was originally seen and has called to the dwarven blood in their veins since. The fact that it's so deep under the ground means that everything is a little bit slow, but that just means that there's more time for Tom to enjoy nice new clothes, to eat in the legendary dining hall, and to enjoy pleasant thoughts that peace allow to linger. Only her need for friendship, fostered by years spent waging a lonely war in the wilds far from home, go unanswered. The fortress instead answers her call for gear. Fresh steel begins being turned into strong weapons and armor to start training smiths up, while miners down below work to begin safely excavating the adamantine. The sound of picks and hammers seems to draw a goblin attack, but the last one was dangerous enough that Tom now takes precautions even though she's awake and ready for vengeance. Fighting in the open or a single file tunnel would let Tom be surrounded and force her to dodge extra blows and arrows. But this winding tunnel, carved in so long ago, staggers the enemies and blocks their line of sight, allows her to slaughter them without having to deal with their blows bouncing off steel armor. Cleaning up the mess allows attention to be diverted back down once more. The spire is riddled with pockets of water, magma, and much worse that decorate this beautiful but dangerous place from which adamantine calls. There are other treasures down here too, though they're largely ignored for the blue hue the miners are after. The dangers prompt dwarves to try using glass floors to peer into depths, but it unfortunately just doesn't really do that much. And Tom, hearing their dangers afoot, heads down to fish. She was the fort's designated fisher dwarf back nearly 4 years ago, and this is actually her first chance to do it, though being here without a sword in hand just feels careless. But like a deadly game of Minesweeper, risks are taken and progress is slowly won. Adamantine begins being carried up long flights of stairs, while dwarves peek on with mirth in their eyes and hope in their hearts. Glassmakers turn pearl ash into clear glass, hoping to provide better glimpses into the unknown so that Toulon, the best in the fort at working adamantine from its ore into strands that will eventually be used to make metal bars, will never want for more of the stuff to process. All of that offered Tom a lovely break, though it's almost interrupted by a giant that comes to attack the fort before some human merchant's guards that were stranded here from a long time ago steal her kill. And really, what's a dwarf supposed to do when that happens but go take their anger out on some unsuspecting elves? When the retreat she attacks is empty, she tries going back time and time again to fully raise it to the ground, but the elves hide high in the trees and stave off their demise. Clear glass unfortunately proves no better for helping exploration be safe, so miners continue progress even while danger continues looming. Lava's occasionally revealed, flooding the area and sometimes killing a miner. But worse than that is that the area is no longer safe to work in and has to be fixed by channeling down into the ocean to let water help deal with the burning magma. There's more adamantine to excavate, more power Tom needs, and that means they have to keep going. Even if that gold might not actually be needed on their current goal to raise elven cities. The retreats they are targeting, Cactus Tufts, doesn't go down despite a half dozen attacks where Tom finds nothing. And so she instead begins working down every other site of the Elven civilization, the Jaws of Responsibility, until all they are ghost towns. The raids that continue in the months it takes to fix the issues with lava finally push Tom up over 500 total kills. But the magma does eventually thin enough until it evaporates off. It's nice to see, though it won't actually accelerate the timeline, since up above, Sibrek the Smith is still training. The steel short swords they make only give 60 experience each, so it'll be a long process before they're ready to handle adamantine. The rest of the fortress keeps busy, expanding the arts and providing places of worship for budding religions about the city, improving Tom's barracks at the front of the fort, and making yet more bedrooms in the same stock template, so that everyone has a room to call their own, and no one has a reason to be jealous of each other. Tom, meanwhile, adds elephants to the list of the elves' beasts she kills when she has to, then has a tense fight with a hydra that stumbles upon Tiristkol. It is an epic battle, and though she's terrified by the creature, pulling through and cutting off every last one of its heads makes her unfortunately name her steel sword. It's great that she likes her weapon this much, and that wielding it's so natural to her that she wants to give it a cool name like Okurulish. But that does mean she's not going to use the adamantine sword that Sibrek's been working on being able to work. She at least does baptize it afresh with more waves of elven blood, then uses its honed edge to destroy her second elven city. Those retreats that are left continue throwing precious animals in front of her, hoping to kill her off, or the best they can really get is a slight delay as they don't stave off her mission to see them burned for too long. With the lava gone, work on adamantine can continue. Miners delve down safely-ish by carefully considering what can be seen using different Z levels to try and guess what's risky and what isn't. Unfortunately, risks sometimes come to bite them in the ass. The second big setback happens soon after, as an unearthed monstrosity attacks, causing miners and those just there to haul adamantine up to flee to the tunnels. It's too fast to even think about using the bridge meant to block it in, but fortunately, Dwarven miners are sturdy folks. Once cornered, Rovat heroically turns and takes the thing down, though there's some brutal blows they'll wear for the rest of their lives if they can even be carried up to the hospital for them to be treated at. And yet, though the miners now know what made those sounds in the walls they were so disgusted by long ago, they head back down all the same. Tom is out there sweating, suffering, and bleeding, and this is what little Tiristkol can do to help their guardian. The next bout of revealed lava isn't as bad as the first, and progress continues both there and on the world stage. Whiskerin, the last elven stronghold of the Jaws of Responsibility, falls. Unfortunately, the destroyed sites that Tom leaves in her wakes are slowly being reclaimed by other places. It means actually conquering this local area is impossible, since they're rebuilt more quickly than Tom alone could ever hope to deal with them, but the Elven Jaws of Responsibility are ultimately reduced to just a few ghost towns at which Tom can find nothing. I don't think I'm wrong when I say that it's fair to say that they have been totally taken out by a lone soldier. That frees Tom to turn their attention on the nearby goblins, though again, not at the fortress with 1,000 foes. There are plenty of pits and groups of some 30 to 70 that Tom can instead work at, with trip after trip into these dangerous wilds. That means miners are once again on their own when divine retribution tries to smite them down. And while one does eventually kill it, they don't do it before more tombs have to be added for the recently dead. No wonder the Doctors Guild wants more recognition. Sibrek does too, though it's for a much better reason. They are finally a legendary weapon maker after making hundreds of steel swords. Tom will continue using their named one instead. Nothing can be done to stop her from just loving that one, but Sibrek still makes an adamantine blade to at least give her the option to hold greatness she deserves. The rest of the adamantine brought up will be turned into armor, though progress on that would be much faster if Tom would help. She's supposed to be stationed there to deal with demons, but stays in the tavern to listen to a great story, which there is no story out there good enough that
I swear it's true. I hit the video's like button, and my standoffish cat came for cuddles. I suddenly felt more hydrated, my posture was fixed, and 3 rainbows appeared there in my room.
Alright, maybe hear that person out. Maybe they've got some good ideas, maybe you should listen. Tom then decides to head to the front of the fort to just chill, when, again, supposed to be stationed at the very bottom of it. She insists she's fine, but seriously, did she hit her head somewhere? That adamantine is needed quickly, because up above, the armor smith has finally hit legendary skill as well. There's plenty of the blue stuff, but still not nearly enough for even a single full set of armor. Miners work on that quickly, while the Hall of Guild Halls is finished off, and Tom's restlessness has them setting out despite only wearing Dwarven steel. She has 700 kills under her belt already, and that goal of 1,000 does seem likely. Strand extractors and furnace workers make adamantine wafers in her wake, and the first pieces are prepared for her to return to. While putting them on, I finally realized that Tom has never once worn a breastplate atop their mail shirt this entire time, and that's kinda bad she's been missing out on free armor. But oh gosh, is that beautiful blue hue of adamantine so nice to see. I've played this game for like 800 hours, and I've only ever actually had adamantine armor 3 times. This is the best stuff in the game, and it's almost invulnerable. Wearing it and spending time with their friends for the first time in years has even helped lift Tom's mood up. Or maybe she's just happy she stole a cave dragon from those goblins? It'll make a great war pet to accompany Tom, even if it probably won't live very long in the fight Tom's getting up to. These things are strong, but they're not ready to be outnumbered like she is. And because she will be, she ends up putting on more and more adamantine gear as the last spelunking sets find as much as is needed. After just a little more waiting, it's done. They name their copper shield and officially have the best gear they will ever wear. The adamantine isn't masterpiece quality, but even the exceptional work done is stunningly effective. It renews her vigor, and she goes out to continue waging that lonely war. She reduces a goblin sight to nothing for the first time to christen her gear, and so Tom moves on to the next of the dozens of sights the goblins still have that boast some 30 to 60 each. Now that she's done being geared though, it means that it's hard to be mad that civilians continue making anything but legendary armor. They expand the clothes making capacities to help keep the ever-growing number of migrants from wearing rags, clean up the vomit they spew when they have to see that ugly sun, and begin work on a grand library. It's completed quickly with so many hands free. I'm kinda not sure what to do when I have this many dwarves and my army isn't like 6 full squads, but this library is going to be amazing. Even better than looking good, it'll let visiting scholars come learn about the world's greatest and most feared hero of this age. There's even a few guest bedrooms to host them. After that, the civilians are kept somewhat busy working on yet more guild halls, just in case the growing metropolis ever needs to help the homeland by exporting something specific. It's what little they can do while Tom handles the brunt of rampaging through goblin sites with a few dozen foes at each until their empire crumbles. Well, most of their empire is crumbling anyways. The goblins do still boast a site 1,000 strong, more than Tom's killed in the last 4 years. It is the final obstacle to ending their civilization, but these are brutal assaults. Conquering these in previous playthroughs took sending 60 soldiers in good gear, and some didn't make it back. Tom's got better gear, but when they go, it takes precisely 7 seconds from when leaving for them to be lost. Although in her defense, a glance at Legends mode shows that she actually wasn't able to be killed. Tom was just overwhelmed and captured while fighting 6 cave dragons after already killing a few dozen goblins and other creatures. That just isn't a fight she can win on her own against, again, 6 cave dragons. This final goal seems insurmountable, and so the goblins are going to live after a reload. But let's see what other accomplishments Tom can manage. There are forgotten beasts in the caverns. She heads down, the doors are opened, and the beast arrives much more quickly than I expected. Tom's not even close. It's awkward, but a passing miner does the job with a good killing blow, meaning that it would have been light work for the embarrassed Tom. The only other forgotten beast is in an awkward spot that can't really be reached, and so Tom takes Ranger out on a few goblins that arrive hoping to catch her sleeping. Unfortunately for them, all they caught was steel and adamantine. Her goal of conquering the goblin civilizations nearby seems to be out of reach, but she still has one other grand achievement to get: 1,000 kills. Tom sets herself against a goblin-held elven retreat she previously cleared out before it was reoccupied, and it goes well. Perhaps because she knows the place more, perhaps because there weren't 60 cave dragons waiting for her. She fights against hundreds of humans, elves, and goblins, and comes out unscathed with another dozen kills under her belt. The largest human fortress in the world of some 200 is next, which also goes absolutely wonderfully. Tom is a force of nature, and only unstoppable objects can put a dent in her progress. The next goblin fortress of 200 she attacks also seems to have an impressive cave dragon breeding program going. After one last reload, Tom instead sets out to provoke every single faction across the entire continent, which will retaliate with plenty of sieges every season. Tom continues venturing out, racking up more and more kills against sites of some dozen to 100 that aren't quite able to muster the food needed for so many dragons, while staying close enough to defend the fort when it's needed. That allows everyone else peace to beautify the fort, despite now being at war with the entire continent. Peace only broken when cheering on two forgotten beasts fighting gets a dwarf cursed by the gods. They become a vampire and kill a few people before they are slaughtered by a horde of civilians that mass them. Tom kills the forgotten beast omen that caused it all, probably, then enjoys a deserved autumn off until I notice that there have been over 300 notable kills, but that they are just shy of their goal of 1,000. They venture out a few more times, and between that and handling a handful of revenge attacks, they do well. There are humans crying about betrayal in spring, a ton of goblins that don't even manage to leave Tom winded in the summer, and then more goblins still in the coming autumn. Tom is at 999 exactly. She ventures out one last time, and 6.5 years after arriving at Tiristkol, notches her 1,000th kill entirely on her own. The fort is safe from all those that would come, and while the goblin strongholds, and more specifically their dragons, are too much for her alone, nothing short of an entire eyrie of the fantastical beast can hope to stop her. Oh hey, it's been a hot minute. Again. Some waning interest in single-player games, and especially Dwarf Fortress, put video making on hold, but I have been feeling the itch again and have some great ideas coming for both Dwarf Fortress and for some other games you aren't going to want to miss. How far can I take a fort where I starve everyone? How's the early access game I started my channel with, Going Medieval, doing? Can you conquer hell if you're only allowed to do anything once a year? You are not going to want to miss these, and I'm going to be putting them out more quickly now than I ever did before, so make sure to subscribe so you see them when they go live. While you're down there, give the video a like, since you made it this far, and I hope you're not watching something you don't like.